Have you ever had a moment like this in a game? Where you think, am I supposed to be playing just now? Has the game started or is it still a cutscene? You're scared to press a button just in case you skip a cinematic or something, so you just sort of stand there, waiting. While maybe not enough to outright ruin a game, it's often something that you want to avoid. It's just clumsy. Games with cutscenes tend to create two states of mind, between playing and not playing, and it's the responsibility of the designers to let the player know when we are transitioning from one state to the other. This is probably the most common way of handling that transition. You're in the middle of a game, it fades to black, you wait a few seconds, then it boots back up again. After the cutscene ends, it fades back to black, you wait, then you can take control again. It's effective, the player knows exactly where they stand, but it's a little jarring. It takes you out of the experience. It doesn't feel like these events are taking place directly after each other, plus it's just not very bonny. I'd take this over this, but I still think we can do better. Let's see how it looks when a little bit more love is put into a transition.
Sam!
This moment from the beginning of Uncharted 4 manages to hit the two key pillars of gameplay transitions. It's made clear to the player that the state of play has changed, and it makes the transition rather seamless. You aren't taken out of the game, it's simply giving you a gentle nudge to let you know that you're back in action. This is done by taking this familiar image, that third-person angle we've all come to recognise by now and associate with gameplay, and gently pushing it into view. The same rules apply in different genres as well, whether the familiar image is a camera angle, a heads-up display popping into view, or simply raising a lowered weapon. These are rather universal gameplay signs that let the player know that the cutscene has ended. And when you know where the cutscene ends and the gameplay begins, or vice versa, you can get creative with it and use your imagination. However, when tasked with creating a seamless transition, it's often instinctual to think of longer, unbroken shots, but that isn't always necessary. In fact, sometimes longer shots actually do more harm than good.
I think actually some game developers take the rule of not cutting a bit too far in games. The 3D Zelda games are especially bad at this. I think these camera transitions might as well be camera cuts. But because they're smooth transitions, but they're really fast, smooth transitions, they create a sense of motion that wouldn't be there with a cut.
The occasional camera pan or spin is fine, but often a cut works just as well.
Any questions? No? Let's go. Frank, you're with me. Paige, you're in the truck with the bikes.
I'd maintain that this cut don't pan option is especially relevant when it comes to first-person games. This might just be a personal thing, but I've always found the slow, creeping pan into a main character's skull a little off-putting, like we're assuming the will of a character and taking them over. This could be said of literally any transition, I know, but it's rarely put so blatantly than in first-person games. Some games make this transition quicker, which is better in my view, but the point is that there seems to be an unnecessary worry in first-person games that suddenly going from third-person to first-person would be too jarring for the player, too confusing, so they try to ease you into it gently. Some games manage to avoid this problem altogether by keeping you in the eyes of the main character for the entire game. But much like with the Grand Theft Auto example, sometimes you can solve a problem with a simple cut.
That'll be all. We can go now.
See? It's not disorientating or weird, is it? It's rather snappy and clear. There's a reason why I've put the guidelines in the order that they're in. While making a transition seamless is great, it's more important to make it clear. Let's face it, cutscenes take control away from the player. You can only make that transition so seamless. Many of the transitions we've been talking about are visually very impressive. Some are straight up beautiful. But they require time, money and manpower that the designers simply might not have. Sometimes you have to work with less. Let's look at the recent release of Recore, which along with a fair share of technical problems, had a rather bog standard fade to black transition, but with one simple trick they managed to make it a bit more seamless. You'll notice that when they make the transition, they keep the sound going.
See what makes you tick.
Enforcing the illusion that no time has passed since the gameplay. Audio is often an overlooked ally that keeps the player in the experience, something that we touched on in my loading screen video. Watch it. When a transition is working at its best, it can both inform the player that the state of play has changed, and prevent the breaking of immersion, making it seem like no time has passed. But, as my old friend Pablo Picasso once said, learn the rules like a pro, so that you can break them like an artist. Once you understand the function of transitions, you can play with them, as was the case with Inside. Forewarning, spoilers ahead. If you haven't played this game yet, I'd wait until you have. There's a part in the game where you're being chased by these swimming monster type things who really just want a hug, and eventually, no matter how hard you try, they'll get one. And at first you'll assume this is just yet another death screen, where after seeing a charming animation, the screen fades to black, then boots up again. But this time it doesn't fade to black. You keep expecting it to, but it keeps on going. It's an at once peculiar, then intriguing sequence that plays with your assumptions. At first you thought you messed up, but now you're being drawn in, wanting to know more. It eventually turns out that not only are you still alive, but you've received an upgrade. For further examples of this sort of thing, just look to the games where your main character is sleeping or resting, waiting for you to show up and play the game.
I know that it is freezing, but I think we have to walk.
To many, there may be a fine line between this and the more clumsy examples I mentioned at the beginning of the video. But here, at least these examples are intentional and add something to the experience, other than just confusion.
But Julie knows a party at some actor's West Side Loft.
So in short, keep things clear for the player. And where possible, steam the transitions to make the game feel like an unbroken experience. Then, when you're feeling saucy, break the rules and do whatever the hell you want.
When everything is lonely, I can be my own best friend. I get a coffee and the paper, have my own conversation.